Welcome to the Heart Portal podcast. I'm your host, Laura Murphy, a certified breathwork and meditation facilitator, intuitive business mentor, and purpose activator. Beyond all the labels, I'm here to bring you into your heart. The Heart Portal is a gateway to the wisdom of your energetic and intuitive heart that guides you to your most expansive life. This podcast is a digital space of curated stories, practices, lessons, and insights from my own lived experience, intermixed with heartful conversations with people that inspire me. Join me as we open the portal to our hearts and access all that's possible. Welcome back to this episode of the Heart Portal. Thank you everyone for your kind messages after I released this new episode in season 2. Thank you. Why don't we begin by taking a breath together and just coming into this moment, into presence, breathing in and out. And my hope is that when you exhale, you can put something down, something that you're carrying. What do I want to talk about today? So I think today is also going to be a short episode. However, I am spilling the tea on the number one piece of advice that I have given anyone that I've ever coached with, anyone that I've ever mentored with, anyone that has ever come to me frantically seeking answers on anything. And that piece of advice, and it's going to be so annoyingly simple, but let that be a reminder to you that it doesn't have to be something that's like intricate. My answer is always, and I'm going to leave you hanging, cliffhanger. If you follow me on Instagram, you've heard me say this every which way, time and time again, but your heart knows. Your heart knows, not mine, not anybody else's. Your heart knows. So what do you do with that information? I like to give the example. So I could tell you, so I was a coach in a container with Chakra Girl Business School for, I'd say like 3.5 years. And I would have 1 to 2 monthly calls a month with a group. And I would say on every single call for 3.5 years, I would say that your heart knows. And oftentimes the amazing people who are starting their businesses and I was in that container helping them with would come to me in a moment of franticness of like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And like, I always like think of this as like a really heady moment. It's like, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, what's happening? I don't know what to do. I think I want to do this. I think I want to do that. I don't know what to do. And my response is always, first of all, take a breath, come into your heart. Your heart knows. 9 times out of 10, they've already told me the answer that's in their heart. And they doubt it, number 1, or they don't hear it, number 2, or it almost seems too easy, or too scary, one or the other. And we'll get into that. And sometimes even with the right questions and just this simple moment of pause, of space between the franticness and the next thought is your heart, your heart's truth. Your heart knows. And the really interesting thing about this, and I have lived this in my own life, in every situation where I have felt, I would rather say, I don't know what I'm feeling, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I want. There is at least 1% of me that knows that that's not true. That I know, that my heart knows. And there's a number of reasons why I don't want to admit that, because oftentimes admitting that would mean that I would have to take action. And sometimes I wasn't fully mentally prepared to take that action, or what would unfold if I honored that truth. Sometimes it meant I had to do something that was big and scary, and I didn't feel like I had the capacity to do it. Or sometimes I didn't want to admit the truth yet. And the funny thing is, we can ignore it as long as we want, but the truth will always prevail in the end. So my advice to you in any moment that you feel you're having a heady moment where that ego, and I call it the ego, but it's that thinking part of your mind that wants to keep you exactly where you are in this moment and doesn't want anything to change and is fearful of everything, when it's got you spinning in circles, in circles, in circles, take a breath, put your hand over your heart and listen. Your heart knows. And you can even ask yourself, and these are questions that I like to journal on often, or even just ask myself in meditation, is if I was to see this through the eyes of my heart, what would I see? Or if my heart was to speak to me now, what would it say? And almost think about it from a third or like an outside perspective, like it is a different entity that is speaking to you. So that's a little trick from my own bank of rituals. The intricacy comes when we know the truth and then we have to take action. But we've also, I think so many of us, myself included, will seek answers from other people that we actually don't trust the voice that's in our own heart. Think of all the times, and this is like a great example to validate the thought that your heart knows. Think of all the times that you may have gone to, I mean, if you're in the realm of like going to see a psychic or pulling tarot cards or even asking, 10 people the same question to get to the answer that you want. Rarely has anyone told you anything new. Oftentimes what you get is a sense of, I knew that, or of a validation that like, oh yeah, no, I knew that. Because your heart knows. And so often we're so used to seeking outside of ourselves for someone else to show us the way when we know the way. Our heart inherently knows the way and the journey. And this is what I teach in the Heart Portal and in like every program that I've ever done. The journey is coming back to that heart-centered place over and over and over again. And you will be pulled away 1,000,000 times a day. And I often say every breath is an opportunity to begin again, to come back to that alignment. And I'll talk more about alignment and burnout and things like that on another episode. But today I just wanted to keep it so simple and just remind you that your heart knows. So if there's something that you are in indecision on, or really like asking for clarity around, and you're just like, I just don't know what to do, create space. And whether that is going for a walk in nature, whether that is, my favorite way to create space is like my morning walk with my dog. Sometimes I listen to podcasts, sometimes I just walk in the neighborhood, and it's in those moments that I have these like breakthroughs, because my heart has an opportunity to speak, because there's distance between my overthinking mind, and I am an overthinker. If you want to see an overthinker, that is me. I come by it honestly. But it gives me space. And my recommendation is like to put space between you and the busyness, that overthinking mind. Just create breathing room. And that's, essentially why I'm so drawn to practices like breath work, because it is one of the most powerful modalities I have ever tried as an overthinker to get me out of my head and into my body and into that heart space and that heart connection, and to actually hear what is in my heart. Can you get there through other modalities? Absolutely. I've done it through meditation. I tend to find as an overthinker, meditation is just a longer path for me to get there. It's definitely a lot more subtle in how you get there, but that's why I love breathwork so much, because it gets you into that space. And the next thing is ask the questions. And I know that sounds so silly, but if you've ever been to breathwork with me before, you are familiar with me saying to you, ask these questions out loud and let your heart hear them. I had a breathwork session today, a really beautiful session. And, this person was speaking about searching for answers and like not knowing what to do. And I just said to her, like, what if you're just willing to let your heart answer. And it's not like, it rarely is going to show up and say, choose this thing over this thing, but it will guide you. It will. I promise you that. Your heart knows. And again, oftentimes it comes down to, it means you're going to have to do something scary, something unknown, something that is going to make you feel uncomfortable. Or sometimes it's really hard to admit that truth that's sitting there. And also just be willing for it to show you when you're ready. Because sometimes when we force like, vice grip on that, I need to make a decision, and I am famous for this. I'm like, I just need to figure this out. And I'm as if you could see me, I'm clenching my fists so tight, like death gripping it. Like I need to figure this out. Rarely have I ever come to an answer that feels aligned when I am death gripping the question. It's when you loosen that fist and loosen that grip, and I call it softening. It's just create softness. That's when you get new life and new thought, and like your heart can speak to you. There's room for it to speak to you because there's space between, even if the space between is ever so slight. I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, and what else did I want to say about this? But I think this is juicy. It's a juicy topic because your heart knows. I think the other intricacy, and what I've seen a lot, especially in the coaching space and in myself, is that we can be really good at telling ourselves, this is the answer. This is the choice that my heart is telling me, when it's really an answer from your ego, and when I say ego, it's that thinking part of our mind, that it's the conscious. It's that thinking part of our mind that is often on autopilot, that wants to keep us safe, that wants to keep us small. We can get really good at rationalizing something and saying, this is the best thing for me, when it's really your ego. And I think this is also one of the biggest questions when we talk about, because when I talk about heart speak, what I'm like, it's my way of saying your intuition. And intuition can scare some people off because some people think they're not intuitive, i.e. I was one of them. I was in a breathwork session one time, and this girl was like, all those, intuitive things that you said, that you channeled. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And I also realized that I'm actually incredibly intuitive. However, I know a couple of my friends are giggling at me when I say that, because I finally admitted the fact that I was intuitive. But for me, instead of calling it intuition, it felt so much more natural to call it like my heart, because that's what it was for me. It's like this truth that was so deep in my heart. And I knew when it's your heart, there's this like dropping in sense of, this might not make sense, but it feels right and it feels certain. And the ego, and like how to tell the difference between the two. And I think I could do a whole nother episode on this. And this is like the difference between intuition and fear, or, essentially between intuition, whether it's your intuition talking to you or your fear. Tune into your body. If it's your heart, it might feel scary as shit. Because it's probably asking you to do something that's going to be new or uncomfortable, or, will veer you off in a direction that you never even thought of. And that can be really scary, but it will never make you feel bad. And your heart, again, it might be a shaky voice, but it's not going to feel contractive. Like when I say contractive, I think like rounding your shoulders around your heart so that it's protected. It'll feel like excitement and openness and like possibility, yet it might feel scary. And sometimes I think we decipher that scariness for fear, but they're different. And that's where I would often ask, the clients that I would work with, are you making this decision out of fear or habit or self-sabotage, or are you making this decision from a place of love? And at the end of the day, there's no wrong decisions. Hot tip, there's no wrong decisions. I just think that like there's only one way and it wouldn't be any other way. And that Peter Crone says this, and I'm an avid listener of his, and I love it when he says this, because we can look back at situations in our life and be like, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have done this. But that's also like your ego really loves to be right. So, just think about that. And what Peter Crone says is it couldn't have been any other way because it wasn't. And that is so brilliant. It's such a beautiful way of saying it, because we can't change anything that's happened in the past. So we can't look back and be like, see, I knew it. I knew my heart was wrong. If we just had the slightest mindset shift of, what if there are no wrong turns? There are no wrong decisions. There are no wrong choices. There are only choices. And I think that's like, again, like ego talking when it's right or wrong. It's just a choice or a decision. And I truly believe, and I also said this on Instagram today, that what is here for you will not pass you by. It will not. Your heart's path is your heart's path, and that is it. Your heart is guiding you. You can take the long road, but you'll always be taking the road to get you to the same destination. And sometimes I think that we think our heart is leading us astray because it's not happening on the ego's timeline. And I'll say that again. Sometimes we feel like our heart is leading us astray or not giving us the answer we want because it's not happening on the ego's timeline. And this is where trusting your heart is just that. It takes trust. Oscar's shaking. He agrees with it. It takes trust, and trusting your own heart is like trusting anybody else's heart. In any relationship you've been in, it takes time to build that trust. So, we rely on our heart to tell us what to do in the big moments. And I think we often forget how much it leads us in the small moments, or even to turn to it in the small moments. And this is why at the end of my breathwork sessions, I'll often, give you support in how to like transition out of such an energetic practice into the rest of your day in supporting your body. And I always encourage you to ask your body what it needs and honor that. And I know for some, myself included, that ask can even be too much. That's like, I don't even know what my body needs, what my heart needs. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I've had someone say that to me, and I thanked them, like, what a beautiful reminder. And I think the first place to start is just ask your heart the questions and be willing. That's it. Be willing. Be willing for your heart to show you. Be willing to ask questions. And maybe it's not the direct questions of like, what is the answer to this? Maybe it's just, what would feel good for me right now? Or what would feel supportive? Or what would feel supportive? Or what wouldn't feel supportive right now? What would I need to feel supported and to feel safe? That's another really good one, because I believe cultivating safety from within is really important, and that's a journey that I'm on, which I'll talk more about. But yeah, your heart knows, and I implore you to explore that a little bit. I don't even know if I use that word right, implore. However, it felt like the right thing to say. So the next time, and I love to give a tangible, the next time you feel frantic, you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I'm going to give you two practices here, actually. I don't know what to do. And you're in that like frantic spiral. You know what it's like. We've all been there. I'm in it like a couple of times a day, if I'm being honest, like frustrated, feel like I'm backed up against a corner, like I don't know how to get out of this or to change this or like whatever. Take a moment and literally, and you can try this right now, not if you're driving, disclaimer, only if you're sitting, you're listening. Close your eyes if that feels safe for you and place your hand over your heart, because I love just even that act of bringing awareness to your heart space, and just take a breath. You can even try lowering your chin, pointing your chin towards your heart. And even just this act of taking intentional, connective breaths into our heart space can create breathing room. And one of the other practices that I've been trying myself is almost like offering the universe, my heart, whoever wants to listen, a devotional. And it's almost like an ask. And I will just, if I'm feeling stuck, so just giving my own example of something that I was going through a lot of transition at the beginning of the year. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I was like frantically in that spiral. And I just kept saying to myself over and over and over again, show me the way, show me the way, show me the way. And that was a plea, maybe, or an invitation to my heart to show me the way. And then I just created space. And I think a part of the work, and this could like go off into a whole nother series, but a part of the work is then surrendering and being willing to create the space for the way to be shown. And that doesn't mean you have to act right away, but be open and be willing to receive and notice how that reception feels in your body. And like, to give a perfect example of, like, I was working for myself full time and just like a lot of transition happening in my life that was going to cost me a lot of money. And I do what I always do and frantically like apply for every job on the planet when I feel that way. And one just felt aligned and it felt easy. And, as my friends say, like, working for the man is not my dream. Since I was 18 months old, didn't like when anyone told me what to do or how to do it. So I'm not, the number one employee. And then sometimes when I see things in organizations and I'm like, that's stupid. Well, I would never do it that way. And I always just feel like my way is better. Anyhow, I digress. Moral of the story, not number one employee. Employee, great employee, but not number one employee. And I was just like, do I keep going with what I'm doing and, struggle, or do I take this opportunity that's in front of me? And I remember driving and I was like death gripping the steering wheel and I was just yelling in the car, like, just show me the way, show me the way, show me the way. And I got to my destination and I looked at my emails and there was a job offer and I'm like, this feels like the right thing right now. And I just like let it sit and I felt into it and that was it. So that's my little story of my asking the universe, my heart, whatever you want to call it, to show me the way and be open. Is that the long-term solution I want? Absolutely not. But is it the right solution for this moment? Absolutely. Sorry, I love cursing. Oh, so good. Anyhow, I digress. I feel like I'm going to close the episode there. If you take nothing else away from this, please take away these 3 words. Your heart knows. So before you turn to anybody else to tell you what's right or wrong for you, or their opinion on what you should or shouldn't do, check in with your heart. Just be willing to check in with your heart. I will close there. I love you. Thank you. And we'll close this out the same way we opened it, with a breath together. I'll see you next week. Thank you, loves, for tuning in today. If this episode inspired you, please feel free to share it with someone who may benefit from it. I'd love to stay in touch, so I invite you to connect with me on Instagram at soulbody.co. And if it feels aligned for you, I invite you to leave a 5-star rating and review. It goes a long way. Bye.